Hey everyone, wanted to take a quick second before the next podcast starts to ask for your support. If you haven't done so already, please go to the Books4Guys.com website and go to the subscription page or the donation page to help us out today. Our whole mission is to get more books into the hands of young men. To do that, we need your help. We need that engine to help propel us to the goals we're trying to accomplish, and we can't do it without you. So please consider today subscribing or donating to help us accomplish that mission. Welcome back to the next episode of the Books4Guys podcast. And on this episode, we got somebody awesome. And I say awesome because we've got John Gates to start. John has written the book, Act Your Wage. And as somebody who is in the same profession as you spent so many years in, John, and talking about this particular topic on a daily basis, I'm excited to talk with you more about your book just because it resonates with me a lot. And a lot of my friends who I know go to the Books4Guys website and listens to this podcast are all in this space as well. And I think there's going to be a lot of intrigue for some of the things you have to share. But John, it's great to have you on. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to do this podcast with me today.
Thanks, Chris. It's exciting for me to be here, actually. I love that you're putting together the Books4Guys venue, a chance for men at every stage of their career to develop themselves and to grow into something more. I think that's something as men we're all excited to do. And this topic of how to negotiate pay, how to talk about money is an extremely impactful one that can vastly change your lifetime earnings. And so I hope we'll have a good conversation. I want people that watch this to leave with something good that they could use, whether they read the book or not. The book's a great resource, but so am I. So let's do it.
Well, yeah, well, I would say this, you're right. This topic, I think if someone knows this is going to help me make more money, I think that's a pretty easy thing to get someone interested in. And, especially men, as, you typically the head of the family trying to level up and take on more responsibility and do more. And this is a conversation, like I said, I've been in the recruiting space about 10 years. I know you were in it a long time, and it's a daily conversation working with candidates. And it's not something I have put that much thought in. You and I got to meet last week and talk a little bit more about this, and I'll let you explain. And so, just what's kind of your backstory and why you decided to write this book?
Great question. I love that question. So I started recruiting in 1990, which was before the internet was a thing, before anyone had email. We all had Rolodexes on our desk. I had a filing cabinet filled with resumes that were kind of organized roughly by
You didn't have an
category.
applicant tracking system you could go
No,
to?
no, none of those even existed back then. We didn't even have Windows, really. I don't think it was like a DOS operating system. I'll show you how old I am, right? But I've been recruiting for over 30 years. Eventually, I became the head of global recruiting for multiple Fortune 500 companies and was not just the head of recruiting, but directly responsible for all executive recruiting for those firms. I owned my own recruiting agency for a couple of years along the way. My first 5 years of recruiting experience were agency, and then I shifted into corporate recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had been laid off 5 times. The first time I got laid off is like before I even started working. This is going to make you laugh. But I graduated from college thinking, I wanted to be a financial analyst. I had a finance degree and another degree in management. I knew I eventually wanted to run my own business, but I thought, it would be great to learn how the numbers work.
Yeah.
So I got that finance degree and really liked financial analysis. So that's what I wanted to do. And I got a job offer from a tech company and accepted that offer.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks before I was supposed to start, I had my first child was newborn. I got an email. No, it wasn't an email. It was a letter. The email didn't exist, right? I got a message from the company saying, "We're so sorry, but we have to rescind your offer. We're rescinding every offer that's still outstanding for anyone who hasn't started yet."
Wow.
And so I lost that job before I even had it. And I had a newborn son and was desperate. And so I networked my tail off, found a job. I got hired by a temp agency that hired me because I had a degree. I could speak Spanish and I looked good in a suit. And that's
Okay.
why they hired me. They wanted me to go set up a recruiting office in a Hispanic suburb of Portland, Oregon.
Wow.
And so I had to translate all the testing and application materials into Spanish. I was interviewing people who didn't speak English and dispatching them on temporary assignments. And I discovered, wow, this is something that I really am good at.
Yeah.
And I think recruiting is the sort of career that people don't aspire to. You usually fall into it.
Hmm.
Nobody goes to college thinking, I'm going to study to become a recruiter.
Yeah. I didn't know recruiting was a thing until someone reached out to me.
Yeah,
And
it is
most
a
people that
career.
I've worked with didn't know a thing about recruiting either until someone introduced them to the industry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, I worked 5 years for agencies, and then I finally got my first corporate recruiting job and worked at that company for 3 years. And coincidentally, it was the same company that rescinded my job offer earlier. Only now I
Uh,
was a senior technical recruiter working for them, recruiting engineers and such. And 3.5 years into that job, they laid off 20% of their workforce. And I discovered when you're responsible for making a company bigger as a recruiter, as soon as it's time for a company to get smaller, you're usually the first on the chopping block.
yeah.
So I got laid off. I got a package, and I decided, I've been kicking around Oregon for my whole like career. I already know all the companies in this area working in the agency side. I want to see what else is out there.
Yeah.
Never lived anywhere else. So I cast the resume to the four winds. I ended up getting an offer to work for Capital One Financial in Richmond, Virginia, which is about as far away from Oregon as
Yeah.
you could go.
You can't get much further.
No, yeah. So here's kind of the genesis of my negotiating career. Um, Capital One has the most difficult selection process I've ever seen. It's designed to decline 90% of people that interview. There are 20 plus competencies that you have to pass in interview questions on.
Wow.
If you fail any one of those 20, if you get 19 right and one wrong, you're not getting the offer.
Wow.
Um, there were three assessments that I had to take, and if you missed the cut score on any of those three, you're not getting an offer. And there was a business case interview, which is like a whiteboard exercise where you have to go up and draw pictures and do math equations and so on with an experienced case interviewer.
Hmm.
Consulting companies do this a lot. If you fail that, or you don't have the right business acumen, no offer.
Wow.
So I go through this gauntlet, which was like an all day torture situation,
Hmm.
interview after interview. And I'm sitting there in a conference room, kind of wiping the blood and sweat off of myself. And in comes Chip. He's the recruiter that's trying to attract me to Capital One. I was going to be an IT recruiter right before Y2K, when everybody's afraid the systems are going to shut down. They
Yeah.
needed to fill this position badly. And so he came in and he said, "John, I'm just going to level with you. We've interviewed 20 plus people for this job. Only two have passed the process, and the other guy just withdrew. So what's it going to take to get you to say yes to my offer and come from Oregon and move here?" And it's like all of a sudden he basically wrote me a blank check. I had
Wow.
never experienced that kind of leverage before in my career. I was still kind of young and I didn't know what to do with it. And I said, "Well, how about this? Increase the base salary a little bit. Give me a slightly higher bonus tier. What can we do about relocation? Because I'm a homeowner." and we upgraded the relocation to something that's usually reserved for more senior people. He basically gave me everything I asked for. And I was so excited. For the first time in my life, I was going to have more money than month.
Yeah.
And I finally crossed that line where I wasn't going to struggle financially anymore.
Yeah.
But I worked for them for 3 years, and every day of that time, I wondered, and it just bugged me. I wondered how much money I probably left on the table. What
What
could
could
I
you have asked
ask
for?
for that I didn't ask for?
Yeah.
And I'd just been laid off, and so I started actually tracking how much money candidates were leaving on the table. I did this for self-defense because I wanted to show companies that having me on the payroll was actually a good thing financially. I wasn't a cost center. I wasn't going to suck money away from their budget. So I set a goal to replace my annual salary every month in negotiation savings. I was filling 4 to 6 jobs every week.
Yeah.
That was a high clip. I was supervising a team now of 16 people. They were offering jobs. So I started training these people on how to negotiate pay and how to track how much money they saved the company.
Yeah.
So if I got an offer that I was supposed to extend, I would say, well, give me some negotiating room in case there's a negotiation here. So they would say, all right, you can start at 175. The top is 185. Here's a $10,000 signing bonus. Use it if you need to.
Yeah.
So if I closed at 175 without using the signing bonus, I just saved 10,000 in salary, 10,000 in the signing bonus, and I just started tracking all of that. And so over the course of time, I was successful almost every single month in paying my annual salary back to the company with negotiation
Wow.
savings.
Yeah.
And so then I started coaching friends and family on how to negotiate pay. And I discovered pretty quickly that people were afraid of losing the offer. They were afraid of negotiating because they didn't want to put that offer at risk. There's too much at stake. People felt like negotiating was a high stakes game of chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that it doesn't have to be that way. I started paying attention to how candidates were negotiating, which ones were successful, what I wanted as the person on the other side of the table, what kind of maneuvering was going to get me to cough up that extra money that was already there
Yeah.
and without putting the offer at risk. And about 3 years ago, I decided let's start this as a business. There's so much value that people are leaving on the table. I want to
Yeah.
show people how to do this, how to talk about money in
Yeah.
a non-confrontational way that feels safe, that takes all the anxiety out of it, but still gives them all that money that they would otherwise leave on the table. And so, yeah, I've been doing this for about 3 years. I work with people as a coach, typically mid-career and above. My favorite clients are senior level people. My personal best so far in salary coach was improving an offer for a C-suite executive by $613,000.
Wow.
I'll tell you that story if you want to hear it, but he almost left a couple of low-end Ferraris on the table,
Yeah.
and he
Wow.
would have too. He was ready to say yes to that offer, and I was able to say, "Wait a second,
Yeah.
let's slow down a little bit. Let's just test what might still be there."
Yeah.
And it shocked us both how much was still available
Yeah.
for him. And my average client, though, is getting an extra 5 figures in their offer package.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Almost anyone can get at least $5,000 extra. And I stumbled on some research after I wrote my book, Chris. This is really cool.
Yeah.
A couple of research papers written, and they compare like the financial outcomes to a young person. Like you're right out of college or you're early in your career at some point. If you can get an extra $5,000 in your early offer package,
Mm-hmm.
then that translates over the course of a long career into an extra $1.5 million of lifetime earnings.
That's mind blowing. That's
Yeah, it's not
amazing.
just $5,000 times 30 years, because the $5,000 compounds
Mm-hmm.
in a in an amazing way. Like, all your future raises are going to be based off your current base salary.
Yep.
Your bonuses and incentives are usually a percentage of base salary. The 401k match that you get for retirement is usually a percentage of base salary.
Yep.
And every time you change jobs, like, your current salary becomes a floor for the
Mm-hmm.
new thing up. So
Yep.
if you can get that $5,000 in early, it balloons to $1.5 million over the course of your career
Wow.
if you can get it in early. Now, another study looked at it from a slightly different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, let's say you want to just retire younger.
Mm-hmm.
If you get that $5,000 early, you can retire 8 years earlier with the same nest egg. So
I mean, it's incredible, and no,
why
nobody
not?
talks about this. Like I've never heard anyone break it down like that. And it's incredible that you took initiative to prove your worth after being laid off so many times, because you do hear a lot of recruiters, they say this over and over. Oh, I'm a cost to the company. You know, I'm not a cost, but you know, they're not doing anything to show why
Mhm.
they're not a cost. And you decided, hey, I'm going to keep track of this, and if it is ever a question, I can show how much I've actually generated or
Yeah.
saved based off what I've been able to do on my side. And then being able to flip it and know what candidates really could have gotten, and be able to share, you know, the conversations they could have had with you in a non-confrontational way to be able to get the number they wanted to.
Yep.
Because if they did request an extra 10K, you would have had it and you would have given it to them, most likely, I'm assuming. And so just them not having the confidence, and it's a valid fear. I think everyone has it, you know, where you're thinking, hey, this is important for me and my family. I don't want to risk not having a job. So you do kind of have a little bit of inner tension where you don't know what all you can say or ask for. And it
Mm.
is a little easier when you maybe already have a job and you're, you know, you can play that game a little bit. But I think it's
Sure.
interesting that you took the approach you did, and were proactive in saying, hey, I'm tired of getting fired for people saying I'm a cost, and let me prove to them that I'm not.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting. Like, it's not just part of it is how you ask for things, and part of it is when you ask for things. Like, those two things are very, very important. There are certain things that you want to know or that you want to negotiate on, but there are absolutely the wrong time in some of these conversations to do
Yeah,
that.
for sure. Yeah.
A good example is severance. So I'll share that with you and with the audience. Like, if you've just been laid off and you got a severance plan and you're talking to a new employer, one of the things you're probably curious about is, what if that happens again to me?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you don't want to bring up the subject of severance because it makes it seem like, you're about to get married or you're dating somebody seriously. Is this the time to bring up a prenuptial agreement?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
feels like that, right?
Not likely.
You don't want to mess up the chemistry
Yeah.
by bringing something like that up in the recruiting process. And you're
Yeah.
right about this. But if you do want to bring it up, the right time to do that is after you have been selected,
Mm-hmm.
but before you say yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring it up 1 minute before you've been selected, you could spoil the selection.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It's a mistake. There are a lot of common mistakes that I help people to avoid. And the reason I wrote the book, you asked that question, and I think I'll answer that question right now. Why did I write Act Your Wage, which is on the table behind me there?
Yep.
Why did I write that book? Well, it's because, first of all, I wanted to show the world that I'm the world's best expert at this topic. I needed the credibility to go out and find consulting clients, and being the guy that actually wrote the book on the topic, the best-selling book on the topic, is getting me onto stages and into conversations and onto podcasts and things like
Yep.
that. I need to tell the world that I exist because people don't know that
Yeah.
such a thing like a pay negotiation coach even exists out there.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons. But the other reason is there's a ton of bad advice in the world. Like if you just Google, how should I negotiate pay, or you start to ask AI for advice on how to position yourself or how to negotiate pay, what you're going to get is an accumulation of all the horrible advice that's
Yeah.
out there all
Yeah.
over the web. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. I see people say, here's how I negotiate pay. And it's a guy that's changed jobs 4 times in his life.
Right. Right.
And he's got a system that has worked for him. And I hear about his system. It's like, dude, you are lucky that
Yeah.
that hasn't blown up in your face yet. Because if you tried that on me, that would not go down well. And
Yeah.
so it's usually a high risk approach, like an ultimatum heavy, like
Yeah.
give me this or I'm walking.
Yeah. And that
Like
that doesn't work in anything.
no, you're a recruiter, so like if you're talking to a candidate, it's early in the process, and they say, you ask the question, "What's your pay expectation?" Which
Hmm.
is a perfectly normal question that recruiters
Hmm.
ask all the time, and they say, "Well, you know what? I need 300,000, and if you can't give me that, uh, you're just wasting my time, right?"
Heard
So
that a lot.
yeah, here's the reason why that's a bad approach. If 300K is way above your range, you're going to say, "Well, okay, I guess we're not a match," and you hang
Yeah.
up the phone, and he
Yeah.
loses the chance to convince the hiring manager that he's worth 300,000.
Yeah.
Now, what if you could go to 340? And what you're going to say is, "Oh, okay, I think we could do that." And you're going
Great.
to write 300,000 on that resume, give it to the hiring manager and say, "This guy's awesome. I think we can get him for as low as 300."
Yeah. Yeah.
So he made a
Yeah.
mistake. Either way, that's
Yeah.
bad advice to tell people to do this, because if he advances, he just took money out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
He limited his ability to negotiate later or to build value. That is a huge, huge, huge mistake. That's really common advice for people to give. So don't take advice from somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that is a bit of free advice here for anybody that wants to get started on this and build immediate actionable knowledge. That book behind me goes through the complete process of what I do with high paying clients.
Yeah.
It's a cheap way to learn the basics and to, for the DIY people who are counting every penny, that is a great, a
Yeah.
great resource that should be on every job seeker's shelf.
Yeah. Well, your credibility should definitely not be questioned. I mean, working on both the agency and the corporate side, I myself have only been on the agency side just because I like it. I'm kind of more in the business development now, but they're two different worlds for sure,
Oh,
and working with two different types of people.
yeah,
Um, but then also, taking the time to write the book and go through that with people. And I'm sitting there thinking like, I would definitely pay a fee if somebody could get me 5 more figures on my base or higher. Like, well, I wouldn't get it, with you anyway. It makes too much sense not to get that advice and work with you to at the
sure.
chance to get that potential money that I personally would be leaving on the table. Because you're right. I mean, nobody teaches you to negotiate in this space. No one. You don't go to college and they teach you how to negotiate more money, and especially once you get out in the real world, like in the business, no one's. They don't want you to know this because ultimately that could cost the business a little more money.
Yep. One of my clients that I just closed out last week was actually the head of talent acquisition for another company. So
Okay.
believe it or not, even recruiters and recruiting leaders who negotiate for a living,
Yeah.
they need a coach in this space because the stakes are very, very personal.
Yeah.
There are supply chain leaders who have become clients who negotiate $1 million deals for breakfast,
Yeah.
and sales executives too. negotiation is not the same as pay negotiation,
Hmm.
because when you're negotiating in a business sense, it's somebody else's money.
Just about to say that it's easy. It's easy giving advice to someone else when it's
Yep.
not your money on the table.
When it's your deal, like your family depends upon
Yeah.
you not screwing this up. And so the biggest disaster ever is you try to negotiate and then somebody pulls the offer away and you lose the opportunity. And now you got to go back and explain to your family about how you were this close and they decided not to offer, or they rescinded the offer or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And when I was tracking this stuff, Chris, interestingly enough, I tracked how many people accepted that initial offer without negotiating at all.
Hmm.
And the number was at least 80%.
I was just about to ask what the percentage was. That's a,
Yep. Yep.
and it doesn't
And
that doesn't shock me because a lot of people
yeah.
don't even try.
Well, as a third party recruiter, even an agency recruiter, you extend offers to people on behalf of companies.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you're good at extending an offer and getting a yes out of them. Like
Yeah.
that's what we're trained to do
Hmm.
as recruiters. And
Yeah.
so people are so pushed into a corner about what's safe to do. They don't
Yeah.
even go, they're just so excited about getting the offer. They might whinge and whine and complain inside about, wow, this isn't what I was hoping for,
Yeah.
but
Well,
they
and
don't, they,
I really like how you emphasize the what to say and when to say it because I would like to know the percentage too on how many people do go about that in the wrong timing or the wrong way to ask because
yeah,
um, just in my personal experience, it does make a huge difference when it is spoken the right way and in the right timing. Things just go more smoothly. And a lot of
yep,
times when it's done that way, yeah, sure. Here's an. What do you need? Great, we'll do it. You know, because if there is a mutual liking of each other, it's very easy to have that conversation when you go about it the right way.
right.
But when it, like you said, when it gets a little choppy, just 1 second before you're supposed to, or if you ask it, you know, using just a few different wrong words or tone in your approach, it changes the whole dynamics of the offer and your negotiating
Oh yeah,
power. Now that I've looked more into your book and I've talked with you, like I've found myself in discussions thinking in certain ways, and I'm like, huh, he's onto something here. This makes a lot of sense. Like I'm actually like thinking it through as I'm having these conversations, which is funny. It's you just I never thought of it before.
well, I'm glad that you're thinking about it now, because it can, next time you're in the job hunt, it can radically change
Yeah.
what you
Yeah, and
do.
as a recruiter, I genuinely want to help people, and I want to get them to where they want to get to, and also make the client happy. And so when it's done in a smooth way, it's very rewarding to go through that process. But when it's not, it's very like it's kind of dreadful to be a part of that. And so um, just I like how you emphasize the how to say it and the timing because
Yeah.
that's probably the most important piece to that is being able to do it in the right process and not just expecting it to happen.
Yeah, yeah. The other 20% of people, by the way, I'd say about half of them approach it in the wrong way, and it
Mhm.
costs them money or costs them the offer. They botch it
Yeah.
in some way. And yeah, we can talk briefly about what those mistakes usually are and what they look
Mhm.
like. And I'd love to hear from you about some stories that you have
Yeah.
as a recruiter. You probably have in your memory when candidates screwed up the negotiation and it cost them
Yeah.
everything.
Oh yeah. Well,
And
and as an
the other
agency
10%.
recruiter, when that candidate screws up, that's my take home pay. So I'm like, come on, man, like don't mess this up for both of us.
Yep, exactly. Like you don't get paid unless they close. I,
That's
I
right.
I say to people sometimes that recruiting is the most difficult sales job in the world,
Yeah.
because you have to sell both ends of the deal. You're selling
Hmm.
the hiring manager on the candidate, and you're selling the candidate on the job and the pay
Yeah.
package and everything. And we have the only profession in the world that the product that we sell can refuse to be sold.
Yep.
Can you
Yep.
imagine what it would be like if you're out there selling copy machines or something like that, and the copy machine says, "Heck no, I'm not going to go to work in that
Yeah.
medical office."
Yeah, I have plenty of stories of ghosting and offers accepted and not showing up on day one, or changed
Oh yeah,
minds, and it's a whirlwind. It's not for everyone. It's you have to kind of have that even kill personality and mindset to it, or
it
can
is
take you in a lot of
difficult.
different directions for sure. But
Uh,
I have a question for you. This is back kind of early on when we were having a discussion. You said you could speak Spanish.
uh,
That just kind of caught me. Where did you learn to speak Spanish? Did you learn it in school? Did you minor in it, or?
yeah, yeah. I learned in school. I started taking Spanish in seventh grade in middle school, and
Okay.
discovered that I have that facility for learning it.
Yeah.
I eventually took it for 6 years through middle school and high school. Took an advanced placement class, like a college level class, as a senior in high school, and then continued on in college. So that's where I learned.
Yeah.
I never spent time in a Spanish speaking country.
Okay.
Um, it was so I would say I was mostly fluent, but
Yeah.
not completely fluent at that
Yeah.
time. Good enough to get through an interview process and do the things I needed to do.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, like today, a company would go try to find a native speaker who could speak
Hmm.
English also fluently, and there's plenty of people out there who could do
Yeah.
that. The challenge for the company at that time in 1990 was to find somebody college educated
Yeah.
who had that ability. And um, those were the days. I think we're coming into a changing time now where college education is not as prized as it once was. But
Yeah.
for the longest time, to get a white collar job anywhere,
Yeah.
you needed to have a degree. And if you happen to get
Absolutely.
one, it was kind of the price of entry.
Yeah.
If you didn't have one and you still managed to get that white collar job, you were going to run into promotional obstacles really fast,
Yeah.
really fast.
Yeah.
That's the story of my father. Like my father pressured me to get a college education from the time I was tiny because he did not have one.
Yeah.
And he was a controller for the wood products industry, finance guy, general manager, even, who rose up, but he got stopped over and over and over again. Jobs that he wanted wouldn't even interview him because he didn't have a degree.
Yeah.
He could get the job, but then couldn't be promoted to more responsibility because he didn't have the degree.
Yeah.
And I think we're coming into a season of change now,
Yeah.
where companies are more focused on what can you do
Yeah.
instead of the degree.
100%. Yeah, I've worked with several companies where it kind of an odd conversation. They would be hiring for something, and they'd be like, "We don't even care if that's what the degree is in. They just have to have a degree." And you're like, "That makes no
Oh
sense.
yeah,
Like, it
yeah.
doesn't correlate to what they're going to be doing." But now there's so much information. You can learn so many different
Sure.
ways. When you
I'm
say
I'm
you
just
have,
curious, Chris. Let me ask you this question.
yeah,
What percentage of people that you place, just ballpark,
yeah.
have a degree in something that's completely unrelated to what they're actually doing?
A lot, a lot. And I don't know
A
what
lot.
that percentage would. I'd have to go break down the numbers, but there's several because especially
Yeah,
technical.
I'd say it's at
I've
least like 40% probably
yeah,
in what I see.
technically focused. A lot of the roles that we place, there's a lot that weren't taught in school or haven't been taught at the level needed to know what to do the job. So a
Hmm.
lot of individuals have transitioned to learning different things that they definitely didn't go to school for, um, which again made it kind of unique when working with certain companies who kind of stood their ground on the degree requirement for so long. They'd be like, we don't care if they have an English degree; they just need one. And I'm like, you're looking for an iOS developer, like that. It just didn't make sense. But it
Yep.
has. I would say a majority of the clients I work with now, that's not a big hiccup for them, and they really do. They like to have the degree? Yeah, it looks good, on the LinkedIn page and for the company's reputation. People still look at it, um, but it's definitely not a must-have check as much as it used to be. Just probably 5 to 10 years ago, it still was
Yeah.
very much needed. But more recently, that's transitioned in a good way. I think both of us
Yeah.
agree on that.
things are starting to shift. I think it's valuable to you earlier in your career, but once you get 10 years of experience doing something, your experience becomes vastly more
Yeah.
valuable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, your Spanish intrigued me because we have a lot more in common than I thought. Not the fact that you could speak fluent Spanish, but I did minor in Spanish myself,
Cool.
but I cannot speak a lick of it. So I would not be good in a bilingual type role. I can understand it a little bit if it's spoken to me slowly, but I thought I would use my Spanish a little bit more. Um, Never did like I thought I would. Now someone laughs at me. It's like that would be an irrelevant degree on my resume to share because I have no
Yeah.
skills in using it. Um, but no, John, kind of switching gears just a little bit because I think a lot of people will find value in the book that you've written, and I will find value in it. Um, what are some books in your life, whether personally or professionally, that have had an impact on you and have, I don't know, given you a message or encouragement or just something
Sure.
that resonated with you when you read it?
There are three books that I will call out. One is a book that you'll recognize immediately. So I'll start with one that you won't recognize, and it's a book called The Go-Getter.
Go get her. Okay.
It's um it's a brief book, a light book written a long time ago, but it's about a guy who is interviewing for this job, and he's competing against other people, and it's about the value of initiative and sacrifice and going after what you want and going the extra mile for things. It was a formative book for me when I was in my early 20s, and really a book that I can't recommend enough. It's called The Go-Getter. And
Go
so if
get
you
her.
read that
Okay.
book, you'll understand what the blue vase means.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
go check out that book called The Go-Getter.
Okay.
And then the one that you'll recognize is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
It's incredible
Uh,
how impactful that book is for a lot of people because when you
that
ask people their recommendations, that's a book that 9 out of 10 people will mention.
Guys, there's a reason for that. So if you
Mm-hmm.
haven't read that book, you need to read that book. It's entertaining, first of all. It's filled with stories and all kinds of awesome things. Dale Carnegie took 15 years to write that book.
Yeah, that's
And
incredible.
he he just started helping people to figure out how they could advance in their business, and this book is an accumulation of stories of how to actually win friends and influence people, and he wrote it nearly 100 years ago, right? So this is a book that is a perennial bestseller for good reason. If you haven't read it, get it, read it. It will change your life, at least
Yep.
it should.
Yep.
And the last book that I'll bring up is one that really helped me in terms of mindset. And it's an older book. I read this when I was in my 20s. It's called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. By the author's name is Shad Helmstetter. And the book goes into this idea that we say a lot of things to ourselves, and 90+% of the things we say to ourselves is negative.
Mm-hmm.
We say no to ourselves. We say you can't. We say you're stupid. We say, why are you doing that? That's dumb. We say all kinds of negative things to ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you read this book, the first thing that's going to happen is you'll become aware of the inner dialogue that is just going on. It's going on back there. You're saying this stuff to yourself, and you don't even know you're doing it to yourself. Just
Yeah.
like leaving money on the table, you don't know you're sabotaging yourself every single day. And when you read this book, you're going to start to become aware of that negative dialogue. And once you start to hear those words, you're going to say, why? Now, there's within the book a way to first become aware, and secondly, how to replace that with you can, you're good, this
I
is,
will. Yeah.
you're great. And so it's sort of along the power of affirmation line of things. But if if you're the sort of person who typically sabotages yourself, or you got negative outcomes in your life and you're not sure why they are there, this
Yeah.
can be an easy move in that direction to start to correct some of that.
Yeah.
And don't get in your own way. You don't
Yeah.
have to get in your own way, guys.
Yeah.
Like, become your own best cheerleader. Your brain is a computer that will do what you tell it to do.
Yeah.
If you tell your brain that you can't, guess what?
Yeah.
You can't.
Yep. That's something that's been interesting to me, just that topic in general, and just how strong the mind is in either direction. How great your accomplishments can be when you have that thing ticking the right way, but just how destructive it can be with a few negative thoughts. And it's easy to notice too when someone's going through that and you see it and you're just like, man, just think differently, just think differently. It's easier said than done for a lot of people, but it's just something that over the years I've started to be a little more aware of just how powerful your thoughts are. And yeah, I mean, we're our own worst critic most of the time, and being able to reroute those thoughts into a little bit of a different way can make such a huge impact because you
Oh
can
yeah.
accomplish so much more when you've got it, you got your mind going the right direction. It's just
Yep.
it's
Yep.
incredible to think about.
I read that book and my career took off, right?
Yeah,
Um, we stand in our own way often, and we don't know how often we're just derailing ourselves. And so this book shows you how often you're doing that, and also how exactly to rewire your thinking
yeah,
with replace that negative tape loop with something that is going to serve you well.
yeah,
And your brain wants to serve you. It's already serving you. If it thinks you should be held back, then it's going to do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Your thoughts can change your life in one direction or another. And yeah, it sounds like a good book to make sure you're going in the right direction and not the wrong direction. Um, No, well, John, now that you've written this book and you're consulting on it and you're just continuing to teach and help, and while doing that, I'm sure you're still learning and learning about more ways you can help people.
Mhm.
Do you think you'll write another book at some point, or do you have aspirations to do so, or if it
Oh
happens
yeah,
organically, you'll do it? What's kind of your plans for your future? As you continue to go this route.
sure, sure. As an author, for sure, I'm starting up a new business that's sort of ancillary to salary coach right now. Some of my salary coach clients want to become independent consultants. They're tired of the corporate grind. They want to do that, but they don't want to starve to death for 2 or 3 years while they're learning how to do that.
Yeah.
And they feel trapped in their corporate careers. And so I'm starting up something called the Crossroads right now to help people to make that transition. And I'll probably write a book about that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm already started writing my first fiction novel, which is really cool. And I've
Heck yeah.
discovered fiction is way harder to write than nonfiction.
You have
Um,
to generate the whole story.
Creating an entire universe, a
Yeah.
world, rules, religion,
Yeah.
um, magic, how that works, history. You have to have characters that are in conflict, and otherwise it's going to be really boring.
Yeah.
And you have to think about pacing, which is also really hard to
Yeah.
do. But I hope to have that fiction novel, which will be the first in a 5 book series, done within the
Okay.
next year or so.
So
And
you're unlocking the true creative
oh yeah,
world trying to get to what's your and I was going to ask you earlier, but I didn't we didn't really go that direction, but from a fiction standpoint and just from like an enjoyment book. I know we talk about, personal development, professional growth, and we
huh?
biographies, but just for pure enjoyment, it sounds like you do enjoy reading fiction. I
Mhm.
do as well now that I've started to do it more, just to kind of turn the brain off a little bit
Yeah.
from the busy life. But what's do you have a fiction series that you would recommend or that you've really enjoyed?
Oh, there's a book that I read not too long ago called The Child Thief. The
Okay.
Child Thief, which is really it's very good. Like it is an adult retelling of the Peter Pan story.
Okay.
So and it's dark, it's grim, it's bloody,
Yeah.
um, and it's not for kids.
Yeah.
But I really, really like it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. I like almost anything that Brandon Sanderson has written. I like fantasy, science fiction, things that are
Okay.
pushing the edges of creativity.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, it's something that I didn't really. Again, I didn't. My story I've kind of shared on Books for Guys. I didn't really start reading for enjoyment until college. But a lot of that was sports books, and then it kind of transitioned to personal development and business and whatnot. And then it was kind of like 5 or 6 years later when I started reading some fiction books, and I would make myself read a fiction book in between, a few of those other books, just to have something different and kind of just kick back and relax. And I've found so many that I've enjoyed, and
Oh
I
yeah.
can see your point on how it would be if you're not just wired to have that creative imagination to just get the story out. I could see where the challenge would be in writing something like that.
Yeah, there are a few older series too. I really like Edgar Rice Burroughs as an author and Robert E. Howard. Robert E. Howard created Conan the Barbarian
Yeah.
back in the, I don't know, he's from Texas and he wrote for Savage Worlds and these old pulp novel things, and he actually shot himself in the head in the Depression era, but he was writing way back then. um, Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote Tarzan and a bunch of other books. Like the language is a little different, so it's a little bit harder, but these guys were incredibly creative. He wrote the John Carter of Mars series.
Yeah.
So those are amazing and wonderful. And so if anybody here has children, you've got a young boy at home, maybe he's in the late grade school, early middle school years. The Chronicles of Narnia is a
Chronicles of
terrific.
Narnia. Those are great books. I did read those growing up in junior high and high school. I loved
Yeah,
the Chronicles of Narnia book series.
they're really easy to read and it'll ignite the imagination because
Yeah.
it's a whole new world that they're in, and there's magic and stuff like that. A lot of people like the Harry Potter series for the same reason.
Yep.
But I like, I'm a Christian guy, and so I feel like the Chronicles of Narnia is kind of a Christian allegory.
Mm-hmm.
C.S. Lewis, who wrote that book, um, was uh, was a Christian and eventually wrote a bunch of apologetics books,
Yep.
which are good reads too if you're a Christian and you want to explore your faith a little bit.
Yeah.
Check out some of the stuff that C.S. Lewis wrote. The
Yeah.
Problem with Pain, very interesting. Also, the Screw Tape Letters.
Yeah. Hey, I feel like most people have probably seen a C.S. Lewis quote at this point because there's so many just good things that are said in those books. And yeah, that was a series. I was wondering if you were going to say that because that was one of the more popular series when I was growing up was the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yep.
I was laughing the other day too. I was talking to someone, had to be someone in their man, maybe in their 70s, and I asked what their favorite fiction book was, and they were like the Harry Potter series. And I started laughing because everyone loves
Sure.
that Harry Potter. It's like just this, it's like the mecca of fiction books and the stories. That's just everyone. Once you start reading those, you're like, wow, now I know why everyone loves Harry Potter. It's such a good book series.
Of course, yeah. When I was a young lad, that didn't exist. And
Yeah,
I remember for my birthday, I was maybe fifth or sixth grade. My mother got me the box set of the Chronicles of Narnia.
yeah.
And then before my birthday was over, she pulled out the first book, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and
I
she
know which
started
one.
reading it aloud to me. And I was hooked. My imagination was on fire. I wanted to read those books and
Yeah,
see what happened next. And look what happens now, like many, many years later, I'm getting ready to write my own fantasy novel series,
yeah,
even. That wouldn't have been possible without her guiding me into that particular
yeah.
series.
That's now you've got me thinking like the series of unfortunate events and these other book series that I did, really enjoyed growing up with, and yeah, there's a lot of good. I recommend now to people. I'm like, hey, if you
Sure.
don't like reading, find a good fiction book that's just enjoyable. Like it'll ignite that spark and probably lead to some
Sure.
other things. But there's so many good series out there. Even the Jack Ryan books. If you're a big,
Oh, yes.
military fan, like those have been really good. I enjoyed those last year. And
I've got a
uh,
bunch of books behind me on a lower shelf from Clive Cussler, who
okay,
is also a very prolific writer. He's dead now, but he's somehow still writing books because he's got a ghostwriter crew and a bunch of other people that he's trained up to continue the stories.
yeah.
But his lead character is a guy named Dirk Pitt. Believe it or not, like,
Oh,
but it's
I
really
love
great.
that.
There was a movie produced called Sahara,
Yeah.
which is based on one of his stories.
Wow.
But he's like a nautical historian. He was a car collector. He did all these like super cool things
Yeah.
as a real human being. Clive Cussler lived a very interesting life,
Yeah.
and his book characters lead that same interesting life. And he's able to weave a whole bunch of different stories together. Somehow he's able to cross paths with a Viking shipwreck and a Russian moon base, and what's going on in communist Cuba.
Yeah.
Um, all these stories somehow intersect, and it's
Yeah.
really, as a writer, I love to read his stuff because it's interesting to see how he weaves it.
Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah, I love that. Well, John, man, thank you so much again for taking the time to do this with me. I think so many people are going to find a benefit and find interest in the book you've written because again, who doesn't want to make more money when they transition jobs? How if someone in the professional space they're interested in contacting you to get the help, how do they reach you? How do they get a hold of you?
Great question. So the best way to reach me is by email, which is John with JOHN at salary.coach, COACH. And you can get me directly that way. If you're interested in learning about negotiation or want a tool besides the book, the Salary Coach Academy is another offer that I have where you can learn in a video series, a video lesson series, and that's at salarycoachacademy.com.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, we'll be sure and put those links in the podcast. Uh, and no, John, I'm sure as you continue to author more books, both in the space you're in, with your new consulting book you're working on, and fiction.
Mm.
We'll have to do this again so we can talk about those books and spotlight those and just keep this going every time you write one.
I would love that. This is such a good group, and I'm blessed that we cross paths and that you're doing this. You're doing the right thing here, and I'm excited about being part of it. So thanks
Yeah.
for including me.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your support. And again, I think there's going to be a lot of individuals that are interested in this book. I mean, me in particular, as again, I'm in this space and deal with it every day. And it's just something that I think is going to be a powerful tool for me
Oh,
to
God.
read and learn from. And so,
So
no,
glad
John,
to hear that, Chris. And it's a
yeah,
great gift for anybody graduating from college or new in their career, or if you know a job seeker, do them the favor of buying them this book. It
yeah.
should be on every job seeker's shelf.
Yep. No, and that's a good recommendation. And for everyone, it's on the Books for Guys website. If you click on it, it takes you right to the Amazon link. Be sure and leave John a review. If you like the book, if you don't like it, don't leave a review. But
Yeah, my publisher is saying, John, you've only got 9 reviews. It's a best-selling book. You need
yeah,
99 reviews.
we need to
So I
get
would
get the
appreciate
reviews
that
up.
very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John, thank you so much, and thank you again for taking the time to do this with us.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Take care.